Hi, I'm Kelsey Zeiser. I'm a senior editor here at Light Reading, and we're at Mobile World Congress in Las Vegas. And it's a little quiet on the show floor right now. Things haven't quite opened up. We're here bright and early. But I'm joined with Mike Geller with Radware. Thanks for seeing me so early in the morning, pre-coffee and everything. Or maybe you've had some.
I haven't, but you guys get credit for a good call here. It's nice and quiet. Shh, nice.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here, though. It's very, very. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to talk about something that's very core at my passion for this time. So let's do it.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So you spoke on a panel about 5G Advanced. For those who maybe aren't familiar with the advanced part, can you explain a little bit what 5G Advanced means and why it's important to Radware?
Yeah, so it's important to Radware and the industry because the whole premise of the panel is that we've spent this time recently over the past few years to put together this platform. People call it a 5G standalone core. People call it a MEC edge. People call it a service aggregation place. Whatever you want to call it, the 5G Advanced is calling into now. All right, we have these ultra low latency outcomes. We have these, think virtual reality, think gaming, think connected car, and now these things are coming real. And it's about using analytics. It's about making the network sing and dance and perform to deliver the outcomes that we want. So 5G Advanced really is kind of that next step forward. And what we've found at Radware is that we have a need to make sure that security is inherently built into the fabric. Because in the end, it's about availability. It's funny, security gets so complex so fast. If you think about it, Kelsey, to me, it's about what can we do to make the services available, not just the packet core itself, but the overall services. Think even at the MEC, we aggregate SD-WAN connectivity over mobile, over broadband, over kind of the replacement of MPLS, over all these things. We look at that then and we say, well, that network, that service needs to be kept available because that's now the lifeblood of access to the critical applications, to the critical network services, to the things that we're consuming off of 5G. So that, to me, that's the really exciting part. The really exciting part is we've kind of evolved to a point where we have this platform now. And the question is, what are we going to do with the platform, and how do you make sure that platform is available all the time? If you think about it, Kelsey, the impetus for people who are miscreants, who are criminals, who are hackers, they're much more likely now to come after this because it's become the foundational platform of how we kind of live, work, and play. So to me, that was the genesis of the panel. It's kind of what services do we have, what does 5G Advanced mean in terms of this platform overall in and of itself, but then really what are we making of it? How does B2B evolve? How does B2C evolve? That's my take on it.
And when we were, first talking about 5G a few years ago, some service providers were saying, well, 5G is inherently more secure, but it sounds like there are some, critical security components that need to be considered. Can you, expand a little bit on the security features that 5G requires?
Yeah, so I think we should give, we're often very critical of the people who put these standards, the people who put these things together. I think we should give the people at 3GPP and others who have kind of corroborated with all of us in the industry to create a platform that is inherently more secure. Things like encryption toward the edge is making typical things that were in 4G a big deal, IMSI catching and things like this, that those things are happening in pockets. However, there is a best practice from a security perspective that the service itself needs to be kept available. And that's not really part of the standard. And by available, I mean protecting the critical applications. 5G is about these network functions that, because of ultra low latency, get moved far out to the edge. Well, the model now requires an evolution of thinking. I need to put security out there too. We didn't typically do it that way. We used to kind of look at telemetry at the edge, but then we would bring that traffic back to a scrubbing center in the network. In English, what that means is it adds latency. And because these new models require you to be agile, to be able to insert services where we need them, tie them to the manifestation in the network, and then be able to go in and put visibility and mitigation, detection and mitigation at the edge, to think about threats from a few years ago, like Mirai botnet. Now with each UE, each iPhone or Android phone or IoT device, a bot of those is a very destructive potentially element. So we need to make sure that across the threat surface, APIs being used from external services to call for a secure outcome in the packet core. That's an inherent part of all these services that we're consuming. The IoT services, the connected stadiums. I was in Barcelona not that long ago, and the Football Club de Barcelona, the camp as we call it, is a fully connected stadium. In order to make those outcomes, buffering can't happen, but it has to also be available. It has to, so you think about this balance of taking age-old security acumen around keeping a service available, but then applying it to denial of service at the edge. You have connectivity, you have peering, you have things like this, all fully disaggregated now. So you have the need to automate and to get scale and to push analytics-based machine learning out to the edge so we can be very agile in what we do. That makes the operators capable of deploying all the services that you and I want to consume.
So it sounds like having so many applications and data analytics at the edge, plus the amount of devices on the 5G network, create kind of some new security hurdles. Is that right?
Big time, yeah. So it's one thing to say that I have a problem to solve. It's another thing to say that I have a problem to solve at the scale of what is now happening with 5G. So yes, you're absolutely right. There's a challenge around proper telemetry gathering and in a much more distributed way. There's a challenge around how can I handle that telemetry once I have it in that place at the edge to be able to do something in the latency without a latency penalty. How do I then go in and understand and protect these critical services? It's funny for those of us who have been doing security for a long time. It's a little bit of what we've been doing, but to your question, it's a lot about how do I insert those things in a very agile way. Spinning up. It's funny. We're sitting down the path from our friends from NovaFlow. And from many of the carriers, we've worked with them to tie deterministic outcomes related to segment routing to the insertion of security services, making that kind of agility possible. So it's interesting. I mean, I'm not here to do a commercial for them, but it's a point in case that you're one of the biggest challenges that we'll have, Kelsey, is continually adjusting to scale. We've put. I would argue that to achieve that scale, security has to be foundational in what you're doing, not only in the packet core itself, the 5G core, the 5G advanced core, but in the surrounding services. So the way that we look at it at Radware is we say, look, you're protecting the critical applications inside the packet core, the critical API calls that come through it and to it, and the networks that serve those critical applications. And if you've got that foundation in place, now we can start to look at, all right, what do I need to do on the endpoints? What do I need to do? So it's a bit of a defense in depth game. You kind of have to have the basics, and that's how we approach it at Radware, is to let the providers not only have those basics and keep it secure and available, but to be able to monetize those services as well downstream towards enterprises and governments and users.
Okay, so helping them develop some managed security services for their enterprise and other customers.
Yeah, I think so. It's very easy, especially coming from a vendor. It's very easy to turn around and say, well, we have these great things to protect your infrastructure. Okay, that's cool. But when you turn around, Kelsey, and you say, well, we can take these same controls, have a portal facing the customer, protect their apps, their networks. Now all of a sudden, that problem of securing the packet core now doesn't become a cost center; it becomes a profit center. And this is a marvelous revelation for. I mean, you can't really give credit for that to just Radware. There's an industry there, but we certainly are actively partaking in that approach to go the managed services route to complement what we're doing to protect the infrastructure and 5G core.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, Mike, thanks so much for going over this with me, and I appreciate your time today.
Very well. It's nice to be here, and it was a very enjoyable conversation today, Kelsey. Especially how quiet it is.